Quite an intro. Anything that Lena missed?
I think she covered most of it. My experience has been pretty site-based, so I've been doing a lot of the metallurgy roles, kind of been in the midst of all of the fun in a plant, and then within the last 12 months, moved into a more strategic position. So that's been a bit of a shift for me. But I think it's been good for our site teams that I'm a bit of an advocate for the things that I know that they need, and I'm close enough to them and often enough to really push for what is really quite important to them.
So NSR has been on a pretty significant journey over the last few years. Lots of strategic projects going on. For people that don't know about NSR, would you mind just giving them a 30-second intro?
So NSR, very value-focused gold company here for the long run, and our investments in our operational centres are focused around that long-term opportunity. So KCGM, for example, the expansion that's happening out there is really setting us up for our long-term goals, really kind of a plant that's going to just keep producing. The recent acquisition of De Grey and the Hemi plant, again, another really long life mine and another opportunity for us to kind of be in a different operational centre. Then supported by our operation over in Alaska, Pogo, another great plant with a really great opportunity. We've then got our other plants throughout WA. We've got Carosue Dam and Canona Bell out of the Kalgoorlie region, and Jundee and Thunderbox up in the Yandal region.
Nice. So your role is Metallurgy Lead. You've got quite a few hats that you wear. Can you share a little bit about your role?
Very, very diverse role and doing kind of less metallurgy, it seems, lately. My role is quite broad. I support a lot of the different functions for the processing teams. That's across the maintenance. I kind of dip in there and help those guys out as well. But really focused on kind of the processing side and ensuring that we're achieving our strategic goals. So sometimes that's tailings, sometimes that's metallurgical accounting, but then there's other times as well that it's all sorts of maintenance problems that are going on and how the Mets can assist. But as well, looking after our graduate teams. We've got lots of graduates within Northern Star that we want to support to really be a wonderful part of the industry. But yeah, very, very broad in terms of what I'm doing day to day.
And one of those projects that you work on is the digitalisation project, and it's sort of setting the scene for the rest of the sessions today. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, so that project came about for a few different reasons. Initially, there was a couple of systems that weren't working well, and then it kind of really developed into something that was going to be more of a strategic decision for the business to get alignment for all of us to kind of be doing the same thing on our different sites, but as well then to provide a bit of opportunity to improve what we're doing and make it more robust, more reliable, and set the groundwork for then a little bit more kind of analysis and integration into more complex systems. So the digitization project for us was lots of different things, is lots of different things. It's still underway, and involving lots of different kind of applications from the Mipac team. Some bespoke, some kind of ready to go off the shelf. And I think that kind of flex between the two has been really successful for us. We were able to employ T-Card quite quickly, get everyone quite comfortable with the Mipac name, and then be a little bit more bespoke with our log sheets, with production monitor, getting all of the teams on board. They're a little bit more kind of in depth in what we needed from the stakeholders in that, but it was good to kind of roll it out with something a little bit more straightforward.
So it's a fairly ambitious project that you're running. There's going to be people in the room that are about to start a similar ambitious project. How did you get it across the line? What were the objectives? What were the measures of success that you were going with to convince decision makers that they should go ahead with this?
So for us, it was less about, kind of get up with the times and get digital. That was obviously a part of it for some of the teams. It was more about getting that alignment for the entire business. As we grow, we wanted a better way to analyze our data and to see our data as well. But then it was that link into the operational teams that they had systems that just weren't working for them, that they were taking longer to do the administration within those systems than what they were kind of providing in the first place. So I think it's been kind of like a few folds on that, but primarily it's been about creating a network for us that we can build upon later. It's quite kind of basic in what we're looking to deploy at the moment, we will then use that as the foundations to build and to kind of add the AI as well. That's not the largest part of the digitalisation project at the moment, but it's creating those really strong foundations for it.
We're really happy to be supporting you with that project. They do say that nobody gets fired choosing a McKinsey. Why did you decide on a Mipac rather than signing up with a Big Four consulting company and going straight for AI?
First part's easy. We didn't go for a Big Four company because it wasn't a Big Four solution we were looking for. We didn't want something off the shelf. We knew that wasn't going to work for Northern Star. So then the criteria of how we were to find a company to support us was more around who knows what our problems are intimately, who can support us in exactly what we need when we don't even know what we need. And that was where it was a bit of a chain effect of kind of going through different businesses and seeing who could provide us what. And the biggest part for us with MyPack was the diversity amongst their team. It's been very, very nice to have Mets on board with all of these conversations around software, IT, AI. To have metallurgists in their team with MyPack has been the greatest part for us. There's nothing better than saying to a metallurgist, hang on, that's not going to work for the elution circuit, and then not having to explain, it's a batch process within a continuous process. It's just made it so much easier. And then as well, the translation from their guys, from me speaking metallurgy, even just back into our IT systems and our IT groups, that, what our challenges are, I don't know what they are, but the IT guys from Mipac do, and then they communicate it back to our teams. It's been really, really useful. That connection is just super valuable.
So the project spans multiple sites, the whole portfolio within Northern Star, multiple different disciplines, multiple different projects. How did you go about choosing what to do when, what to prioritize, and the sequencing of those things?
Admittedly, that's something that we didn't get right from the beginning, and it's still evolving. We're still working that out. Trying to determine who was important for this project was tough. But what we also didn't realize was that it's a broad scope. We can't have everyone that we think is important involved at every single stage. That just wasn't helpful. We found that we had too many people in meetings, for example. People then didn't feel comfortable to speak up and say what we needed them to say, the reason that they were in the meetings in the first place. So we had to kind of narrow that scope and just give people their piece, really break it down for who needed what, who needed to be where, and then to allow that to kind of circle back as well, where we got it wrong, where we had the wrong people in the rooms, especially with MyPack, there was a lot of flexibility to say, hey, can we actually just have a catch up with these other guys because they probably want to have a part of this? But we've gone around that roundabout a few times. We definitely have. We've come back. For us, it's about just adapting and understanding what's important today. That might not be important tomorrow, and that's all right. And working with a company that allowed us to go backwards and forwards and move around, that helped as we figured out our own alignment strategy.
So we've promised no selling at this event, right? But feel free to give us another plug if you'd like. I'm interested to know there might be a lot of people out here looking to engage a company like MyPack to do a project like this. What were the criteria that NSR were looking for when they chose MyPack or when they were looking for vendors? What were the criteria?
I think the criteria in the beginning were really based around that support that we could get. We really knew that Northern Star internally didn't have the teams to run this ourselves, hence we were looking for someone to really come along with us on that journey and to be able to tell us what we needed. That was a big part of it. Honestly say, look, this is where your gaps are. This is where you need to kind of be putting your extra energy and effort. But I think it's changed a lot throughout the project because the project has changed so much. And it's been about a team that could just support us in whatever the next kind of like goal was. For me to do it again, definitely having the metallurgy and the process engineers in this project has been so handy. I've worked with other businesses in similar kind of digitization projects, and that language barrier I didn't realize was what was making a lot of those projects a lot harder than they needed to be. Doing this with MyPack has definitely been very, very, very handy to have a suite of process engineers and Mets alongside the software side as well, because you're all pretty much kind of dual qualified in that you speak the software and you speak the metallurgy too.
there's quite a few moving parts with the project. Um, what obstacles have you encountered, and what of those were unexpected, and what have you done to overcome those obstacles?
Lots of obstacles. Lots. One of the obstacles that I think I didn't expect was the IT interaction on our side. It was really quite difficult to explain to our IT team what we were doing and what we needed their support on, and kind of the gates that they needed to open. That I didn't give enough kind of input and energy to in the beginning. And thankfully, our team was quite dynamic in that once they understood what I was trying to achieve and how I was trying to achieve that, they were then able to support and then speak directly with Mipac to open up those gates and to make it work. But definitely the communication was the big part for me. Communicating to the right people at the right time and then circling it back when things changed. Because all of those parts were moving, it was difficult to get a communication stream that worked for everyone. A bulk email didn't work. Bulk meetings didn't work. It had to be bespoke, which was more time consuming, but in the end was more effective because people were more engaged, participating, and really being useful for what people were qualified to do. I don't know everything. I'm a metallurgist. So where IT could step in and say that wasn't going to work on their side, or the MyPack group could step in as well and say, like, this is how we've kind of seen it run for other businesses. That might become a challenge later on. That was really handy.
You've packed a lot into your career, and you're leading a very significant project across this entire portfolio. What do you know now that you wish you had known back when you started?
IT do so much more than I thought they did. It's intense, and that's not just the software engineers like from your side, particularly the IT groups on the MyPack side and on the Northern Star side do so much more than I was expecting and allow us to achieve far more than I was expecting. I think I've worked for a lot of small businesses where we didn't have such a strong support network from IT. So what we were doing was more kind of hands-on the ground, and it was brutal, definitely. We were kind of clunking our way through it, but getting the IT guys involved really allowed us to seamlessly produce a better product.
We've known each other since 2018. Um, One of the things that stands out, knowing you for that amount of time, is that your ability to connect and your willingness to support the likes of MyPack in this event. Everyone here today is volunteering their time, by the way. What advice would you give the people in this audience or another metallurgist about to embark on a digitisation project for the first time?
Be dynamic and be pragmatic. Get ready to change every single plan you had because it changes and that's okay. I think as well, ensuring that the team that you're working with, you trust and they are supporting you in your changes and really kind of being honest and open about when things aren't going to work or when it's time to sit down and really rethink. That for me is just kind of a bit of a difference in the way that I was doing things. Projects that I've been working on have been a bit smaller, so I was able to be a little bit more kind of goal orientated and just push my way there. Whereas this, I really definitely had to allow that the goalposts were changing, and that was okay. And that's the way that Northern Star really kind of pushes to do things, that as the priorities shift, that's fine. We can adjust and we can change momentum if needed. And yeah, just being dynamic was key.
Eddie mentioned at the beginning there that there's a lack of publicly available information around the success and failures of AI, and that's one of the reasons why we've set this event up. Um, when we first decided to choose this topic, it's always a nervous experience. Can you get speakers that will speak? Can you get attendees that will attend? And it looks like we've struck a chord, as Eddie said. When we were initially speaking or engaging with speakers, we found that there was a lot of hesitation, particularly from mining companies. Either people didn't feel confident to stand up and talk about the topic, or their company gagged them and they weren't allowed to talk about the topic. Why did you step up, and why did NSR let you?
For me personally, I love to learn and I love to kind of work collaboratively. So these kind of events allow me to share my learnings and share that, you know, we're not experts and that's okay. For Northern Star, it's really important for us that the industry is moving forward. We're supported by so many people around us. It's not kind of all done internally. We really rely on the expertise from the different businesses that support what we do. And for me to be able to talk about our challenges, which there's been many and there's been successes as well, really allows us to be honest and open about these sorts of projects. One thing for me, I think this sort of event you kind of tailored to metallurgists, and this work isn't necessarily metallurgy. That's maybe why we found it a little bit difficult to kind of speak up about this. It's a part of our work that affects us for sure, but we aren't necessarily the experts in the field. So being involved is really important from the Met side, but I guess just acknowledging we're not experts. We're not expected to be experts, but getting your voice into the project is really key. And that was important for me to kind of get that message out too.
You heard the bell, so I've got to wrap up, unfortunately. I'd love to keep chatting, but time's up. It's now your time. So I'll hand over to the audience, and I'll ask the audience to wait for a Mipac person to come around with a microphone. But it's now your time to ask some questions. So please feel free to pop your hand up in the air and ask a question. Just be mindful of the questions. Sophia obviously can't answer anything sensitive around numbers or anything like that. So just adjust your questions accordingly, but feel free. First question.
Hi, I'm Yifei from Will Knight. So the question I want to ask, you mentioned the IT team at the beginning seems hesitant to open those gates. You were asking them for open. So I just want to know what's their concern about connecting your OT network to IT network directly.
To be honest, the problem was us, not IT. We didn't communicate what we were trying to do or how it was going to be done. So it came as a bit of a shock to them that we were trying to get this sort of level of access. I guess it just wasn't explained what we were trying to do. Once that was explained and explained by the experts, they were on board. They were ready to go. They had to do all their checks and balances for sure. But once they understood the intention and the purpose of the project, they were on board. It was fine.
Thank you.
Hold on. Back.
Hey, good afternoon. Andrew Compson from Aviva. We're a software provider. Just in this digital transformation program, Sophia, how much corporate enablement has there been across this, or has it been mainly from, as I say, the operations metallurgists who have looked at improvements within the process plant? And if corporate enablement is there, how are they still engaged?
That one's twofold. The sites obviously had a problem, and then the corporate team was there to support. Because it's a group project, it's across all of our operations, including Pogo, it wasn't likely that the sites could just run this themselves. Pogo did push, and they got a lot of good groundwork done with MyPack themselves. They saw their own opportunity. But once we saw that good work at Pogo, we wanted to employ that across the other sites. So this is fully supported by the corporate team. We are engaging consistently. The site teams are just making it a little bit more bespoke to their sites. The corporate team is super, super happy to be a part of this. Any of these projects that affect all of our sites and can be used to leverage improvement for the entire business, happy to support at all angles.
Time for one more question. We'll privilege a speaker.
Sure, thanks. I'm curious. You've got a program going. When does it stop, and how do you make sure that when you've stopped your program, all those gains that you've managed to get, you carry forward?
There's no stop. We're never going to stop. This is the first step. This is our foundation. This is trying to give us the baseline to do a lot better. But for sure, that stop point where, you need to reflect and say, did this actually improve things? It's key. It's difficult to measure by numbers if this was effective or not, because a lot of what we're trying to give back is time to our teams, and we're trying to enable better decision making. Difficult to put a number on that, but for sure, it's going to be important to check back around and make sure that what we've tried to achieve has been achieved. I'm sure if we get lots of complaining on site, we'll know that it's wrong, but this is a journey that we are just going to keep improving on, keep building on, and get more technical and, I guess, better AI connection once we can get our baseline there.
All right, very sorry, everyone. We've got time for one more. All right, one more question. I saw a hand up over there. Yep.
G'day, Paul from Tornado Metallurgy. As an industry, we're pretty poor at measuring our plant, both the feed and the plant. Is there any measurements that keep on coming up throughout your plants that we should be measuring this and we haven't been? It's kind of inhibiting developing models, implementing AI.
We've got a really diverse portfolio of sites, so there's not been any kind of item that's come up that none of the sites are measuring. And where one site's not doing it well, another site probably is doing it quite well. Mipac's been really helpful in that as we're collating this information, we're pushing it to all of our sites. Every single improvement, there's opportunity for that to be employed. So for us, we didn't have too many that came up. But obviously, the key ones for us keep linking back into a more complex system with metallurgical accounting. We are actually working with Mipac at one of our sites to employ sophisticated metallurgical accounting and reconciliation. And that's something that we'd probably want to look into for the other sites in the future to really enable that better understanding. Just because it's throughput doesn't mean it's ounces, and it's kind of that connection backwards and forwards.
I'm being told we've got one more. I saw another hand up. Yep.
What opportunity do you see for AI in your process?
So much opportunity. I think it's kind of endless for us. I think there's a bit of reservation in the beginning that, people think AI is going to take away jobs and take away thinking. But as we're all getting a little bit more comfortable with AI in our own personal lives, it's getting a lot easier to bring that into our professional lives as well. So the teams are really keen to get engaged and see what can happen. For now, I don't think people actually fully understand what it can provide, and that's about really defining what are the benefits that are available and how do we get there.